In the previous episode, we journeyed through the ancient necropolis of the first pharaohs, who built the pyramids in Saqqara, Dahshur and Meidum. Today, we head north to the legendary Giza Plateau. Here, the son of Pharaoh Snefru, building upon a century of achievements in the construction of colossal tombs, created a new wonder of the world for himself. The name of this pharaoh is known to everyone, Pharaoh Khufu, or as Greeks called him, Cheops. His pyramid was named Ahed Khufu, the horizon of Khufu, which today's tourists simply refer to as the Great Pyramid. When the Great Pyramid was opened in the Middle Ages by the local Caliph Al-Mamun, he was astonished by what he found inside. According to the Caliph's records, it was the burial site of an ancient king, entirely surrounded by gold. All the treasures found were transported to the Caliph's palace in Cairo. Unfortunately, their trail is lost from that point, as none of the items from the tomb have survived to our time. The interior is now completely empty, and even Pharaoh Khufu's mummy was lost. During his lifetime, Khufu did not enjoy the same love from the people as his father did. It's likely that he was a tyrant who adored himself. In his mortuary temples, there are almost no depictions of the traditional gods that we are accustomed to seeing in royal tombs. Everything was dedicated solely to himself, the true god on earth. Today it's incredibly difficult to find reliefs from Khufu's temples, as they were almost entirely dismantled for building materials. For example, if you walk through the Bab al-Fatuh gate in Cairo, you can still see images on the stones, including one where Khufu is shown defeating a hippopotamus. This is the legacy of the Old Kingdom, and it's precisely why it pains me to look at many of Cairo's landmarks from early Christianity and the medieval period. Not only the casings, but even the walls of ancient temples were completely dismantled to construct new buildings. Often, only the foundations of Egypt's ancient wonders remained. Yet everyone marvels, oh, how were all those magnificent mosques built? The answer is clear, with axes and picks, used to break apart the stones from the pyramids. They even used vinegar solutions to speed up the process of separating the blocks, and in later times they simply blew up the masonry. After all, it was easier to get stone if the whole structure collapsed. By the way, although the ancient Egyptians disliked Pharaoh Khufu, considering him imposed and narcissistic, and damaged his statues after his death, don't believe those who claim that only one image of him remains, on a small statuette in the Cairo Museum. In reality, those are at least 3 surviving sculptures of this pharaoh, along with many fragments, for those who enjoy piecing together puzzles. Next to the pyramid, there is also a necropolis for the ordinary people who participated in its construction. It vividly illustrates just how grueling and brutal the buildings of this pyramid was, as many bodies show sign of injury, crushing and mutilation. So it's no wonder that Khufu was hated. The neighboring pyramid, belonging to Khafra, Khafra the Great, is simply smaller, although it appears taller, since it is situated on the higher part of the plateau. A distinctive feature of this pyramid is the remaining casing stones at the top. The Egyptians hated Khafra no less than his father, as the country suffered greatly during the reign of both pharaohs. Temples were closed because the pharaoh himself was considering a god, and instead of tending to their fields, the people were forced to build pyramids. As a result, his statues were also destroyed. But Khafra's successor, Menkaura Necheri, Menkaura the Divine, sought to change this. According to Egyptian mythology, there is a legend that when Menkaura came to power, he reopened the temples and sent the workers who had been building the pyramids back home. The people of Egypt didn't know how to thank such a kind and just pharaoh, and Menkaura was certain that the gods would reward him. However, in a prophetic dream, the pharaoh learned that he had only 6 years left to live. Confused as to why the gods were angry with him, Menkaura sought answers from the oracle of Maat, the goddess of truth. The oracle told him that his life was shortened because he was too kind and had failed to do what the gods desired. Egypt was meant to endure hardship for 150 years. Khufu and Khafra understood this, but Menkaura did not. When the pharaoh heard this, he ordered the creation of many lamps. Every night he would light them and hold joyful feasts by torchlight. He did this in an attempt to turn the 6 years he was given into 12, as if the goddess Maat had spoken falsely. However, if Menkaura had simply stopped doing good and had become as cruel a despot as his predecessors, perhaps the goddess Maat would have revoked her sentence. After all, she had shown mercy to Khufu, who also tried to defy fate. But Khufu, realizing that his actions displeased the goddess, repented in time. Despite this story, it's important to remember that the pyramids were in fact a nationwide project. While the actual construction involved relatively few people, about 10,000 workers, these were the best craftsmen of their time, stonemasons, sculptors and artists. Their work was considered incredibly honorable and required great skill and at times even heroic efforts, as those enormous pyramids were built in just a few decades. However, the entire country participated in the process, from the logistics of materials and quarrying stone in Aswan, which was transported along the Nile and via specially constructed canals, to the cultivation of grain for bread, the raising of livestock to feed the workers, and the brewing of beer from barley. The pyramids were a source of national pride, something grand and magnificent that captivated the imagination. Most importantly, they symbolized the assurance that when the pharaoh departed for the afterlife, he would bring blessing and prosperity to all of Egypt. The third great pyramid at Giza belongs to Menkaura, completing this majestic complex. These aren't just 3 separate pyramids belonging to 3 different kings. They are a projection of the Orion constellation on Earth. Orion was a celestial form of Osiris, the god of the afterlife who triumphed over death. For millennia, Giza was regarded as the great horizon leading to the world beyond. Special attention must be given to another famous resident of this ancient necropolis, the Sphinx, who gazes at you seriously, though with a light smile, despite his unfairly disfigured face. The great guardian of time and history, he found no protector in the Middle Ages when a local noble, enraged by the fact that the people still revered this deity, climbed onto the statue and knocked off its nose, ruining the face of the great Horus in the sunlight. The ancient pharaohs cared so much for the mighty Sphinx. Even the Greeks and Romans restored him multiple times. When the people discovered what had been done, they tore apart the man who desecrated their sacred monument and threw the pieces of his body into the Nile. The word Sphinx is Greek and has no direct connection to ancient Egypt. However, when we say Sphinx, we immediately think of him. Although Egyptian art featured many similar figures, all those hundreds of sphinxes guarding ancient temples were modeled after him as a forefather, who who has lain here for thousands of years. Modern Egyptians, following the example of their ancestors, call him Abu al-Hul, the father of dread. Even when the country became Muslim, people continued to revere the Sphinx, which, as the story of his nose shows, greatly irritated foreign rulers. He was considered the guardian of the Nile's flooding and was honored as the source of Egypt's fertile land. The common people treated him with such reverence because he was essentially the only deity they could see with their own eyes. Statues of gods were usually hidden in temples and accessible only to the highest priests and the pharaoh. But here, despite the wall surrounding him, the Sphinx image was visible and connected to deep antiquity, embodying the strength of all ancestors, passed through the reigning pharaoh into the world. This is why he was always been so popular. There is an opening on top of his head, into which various crowns were placed during the time of the pharaohs. Additionally, treasure hunters made a hole there, hoping to discover a hidden tomb. However, there are no tombs inside, nor are there any secret passages beneath him. All the underground tunnels are located closer to the pyramids. Under the Sphinx, there are only cavities created by underground water, which have been explored by scientists, but nothing was found. In truth, the Sphinx is even more awe-inspiring than the pyramids. It's hard to explain, but the longer you gaze at him, the more you're filled with his unshakable calm, radiating from him like light from the sun. And the harder it becomes to step away, as he captivates your mind so completely. They say he sees and hears everything. His ears seem to catch the echoes of the past, while his eyes, fixed eastward for millennia, look toward the coming day. In the faint, tender smile on his lips lies the profound essence of time itself. The period of the Old Kingdom, the golden age of early Egyptian tradition, comes to an end. The pharaohs of the 5th dynasty moved their necropolis slightly further south to Abu Sir, and the rulers of the 6th dynasty will finally adopt the title Per-Aa, Great House, which through biblical texts will come down to us as Pharaoh. However, after Giza, no one would ever build such grand pyramids again. The era when the king was seen as a living god ruling over the earth had passed, and the Egyptian pharaoh would never again ascend to such heights of glory and power.